Hi, Scott here, Scotty's Animals. This is going to be a video about how to build a CNC cage for guinea pigs. And there's a lot of videos out there. I've already done a number of these, but I wanted to do a very concise one. So this is going to be quick and short and to the point, and it's going to show you step by step how to build a CNC cage the easy way. There's a lot of little gotchas involved with making a CNC cage. And the first gotcha is those little connectors. I like to bypass the connectors, just use the grids themselves, and I'll show you why. This right here is actually an old Foster CNC cage that I use, but you can see it's seen better days. This is what happens. These things come apart, and when you try to move this thing, slide it around to pull it out, these things come off. And you could say, oh, well, you just zip tie it. Okay, so you can see here I have zip tied it, but when these connectors, if they come off but the zip tie is still on there, then it's basically this flimsy, useless thing. The zip tie only really works if this thing is there and it just keeps them from separating. But I prefer, as I'll show you in just 1 second, to bypass these pieces altogether and zip tie the grids flush. I like to have it like this, and then I zip tie the entire thing to the Coroplast. The main materials that you're going to need are your Coroplast sheet, your pack of grids, and zip ties. I like these little zip ties. You get a pack of 100, that should cover you for building even one really big multi-level CNC cage. You should be able to get away with just one pack. So the main thing is you zip tie together your frame first before you do any cutting. The purpose of that is, if you just multiply, do some math and figure out, well, these grids are 14 inches. By the way, they're not a foot, they're 14 inches. So if you try to do the math and say, all right, well, 14 inches times whatever, it's not going to necessarily work out. It's way better to actually measure based on the grid, the frame that you've assembled. Once you have it assembled, you're going to lay it out on your sheet. And you want to be very precise with where you lay it, because you want to measure how tall the edge of this, the walls of this are going to be. So once you have it good, you line up with, remember this is corrugated plastic, so these striations will be going lengthwise along the sheet. You line up the grid to that, and so that this side is perpendicular to the lines, and then you can trace the line all the way down. You don't even really need to. You just want to figure out what line you're going to use. And I would suggest coming in 2 or 3 of these Coroplast lines in. So about 1/2 inch inside. So you don't want to be right on the edge. You want to come in a little bit so that when you fold these pieces, that fold is going to stick out the thickness of that Coroplast. So I'm going to count 1, 2, say 3 in, and that's going to be my fold point. And then the same thing, I'm going to give that much distance in here. So I mark an X there, and then I do the same thing, 1, 2, 3, and then an X there. Now, along this line, I'm going to want it to be pretty straight, and I have a guide. But with the corrugations, I can just run my scissor along that grid. But I can, again, I can make a guide line just so that I know. But you don't need these guidelines. You can use an X-Acto knife, which allows you to control the height of the blade, or you can just use whatever scissors you have lying around. You can use a flat edge. I got a pretty good guide right there. Boom. Now, as I mentioned, for this one, you just come in here and you just cut a groove, and if you just are nice and steady, you'll go through one side of that corrugation and you won't go through the other.
But if you do happen to go all the way through, you can just tape it. And if you happen to get out of that groove and into a different one, that's okay too. Just go back. I did pretty good. I've done all the scoring, but I want to point out there's a couple gotchas right here. So remember, the point is to fold these to make a tray. So one of these sides is going to be folded over and taped to the other side. When I flip it over, you'll see what I mean, but you want to choose which side. So here I have it folded so that this flap will fold behind the tray and this flap will fold over and be on the side. And that way none of the folds will be exposed and it'll be a much cleaner look. Now that we flip this over, you should be able to see what I mean. You just want to make sure that you've done it the way that you want it. I'm going to tape up all the corners and then we'll be ready to put it in the frame. This is the moment of truth, basically. If you're conservative in your measurements, then, yeah, see, then you have no problem fitting it in there. And here's the trick, the secret. The fact is, even if you're just a half-inch short on all sides, you zip tie it to the outside edge and the effective space is the same. But you can see there's enough wiggle room here, but it's still plenty of space. You still get the maximum space above the base. Alright, you can see I just zip tied this to that, and look, you can see the back wall just a little bit higher than the front wall, so that hopefully it won't be spilling too much around. And then put my pine shavings in there. See that? As long as it's kiln dried, then it should be safe for your piggies. But here's an extra little tip. After I pour out the pine shavings, I have this little mist bottle and it's set to a really, really fine mist. And I just spray a little bit in the air. And that just gets any dust out of the air that may be there. Then I come in here and I level everything and I tamp it down just to put it all flat. You still want to have about 3 inches, 2-3 inches of flattened pine shavings on the bottom for a 2x3 or a 2x4, or you're going to end up, it's going to be stinking after just a couple days. If you put 3 or 4 inches of pine shavings, hey Snoopy, then it'll last a week without stinking too much. And you'll find that the top layer is dry while underneath it wicks down the moisture. Alright, well there you have it. That's about as simple a cage as you can get. Why is my water bottle bubbling like that? Because when if you want your water bottle not to drip, you squeeze it and create a vacuum before you flip it over. So right now that's what's happening, is air is just sucking in to normalize, to create that vacuum. But look at this. This is really great. See, now I can slide it in and out and it all moves together. Easy to clean, very light, very inexpensive. You can make one of these for about $40. $20 for the grids, $20 for the Coroplast, and if you're lucky you can find some zip ties at the dollar store. Maybe you already have some in a drawer somewhere. Probably do. Alright, so this thing's ready for some Fosters. Got my nice LED light. This is a daylight LED light. Just everyone's been asking me about it, so I made a video about it. I'll link to that video here. And everyone also has been asking me about these tables. I had to go physically to IKEA to get these tables. They're called Linmon or something like that, with Linmon.
something like that. But if you know the dimensions, right, once you've made your choice of how wide your grids are, you can find tables like this online. But these LED lights are what I really like because they're a daylight color and they provide a nice light, a nice even light. All right. Well, thanks for watching. I hope this was concise enough, and that I hope that it helped. And of course, if you watch more of my videos, you'll see CNC builds and how my cages have evolved over the months and years. All right, that's it. Thank you for watching. See you next time.